It says we're live, so I am going to take its word for it. What is up, everyone? It is Saturday, August 20th of 2022. We're back here for another family education and support group in the space of recovery, healing, transformation, and whatever space you want to call it. But we're here each and every single Saturday at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and it's something that we've been doing for a few years now, so I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be your host on a weekly basis. And today I got a new talk. So for those of you who have been coming here for a while, I'm excited for you to be able to hear some new content. For those of you who are new, welcome. There is a wonderful community of human beings that come here every Saturday, and they're engaged in the recovery process. They're interactive, they're kind, they're supporting. You will see them pop up in the comment section. For example, Beta and Jim, who said good morning to the team and to myself and to everyone else. So feel free to use this as a resource. And while people are trickling in, I just want to go ahead and share a few things about myself and who I am and why we do this, and then we'll get into the talk. So like I said earlier, my name is Param. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy with an emphasis in child development, if that matters. I am a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, so an addiction specialist. I also am in recovery myself. So June 13th of 2008 is the day that I chose to turn my life around. And it's been clean and sober since then, which is really wonderful. So just past 14 years this past summer. I also coach high school basketball, and schools have already started, believe it or not. For those of you who don't have kids that are school age or that kind of stuff, school starts like the third week of August now, so it's pretty interesting. It used to be after September, but so the basketball season is going to start going, and I do this every week. So it's called family education and support, but to be honest, it's a little bit beyond that. If you're a person who personally struggles with addictions, this is for you. If you're a family member who struggles with addictions, this is for you. If you're somebody who has been impacted by the addiction of others, this talk is for you. And if you're just someone who life has taken the wind out of your gut, life's just hit you a few times and you feel lost and hopeless and helpless, these talks are for you, because a lot of the underlying tone of it is personal development and how can a human being go from where they are in life to where they want to be. And so Beta, Jim, Mom, Dad, Hossein, what's up, everyone? So let's get into it. Today's talk is, so where did I hear this, first of all? I've been doing this 90-day challenge, and I'm about 20 days into the challenge. And, when I go in the morning and I'm doing cardio 2 times a day, but long story short, when I go in the morning at like 5 o'clock, 5:15 in the morning to get going, it's hard to find motivation at that time of day. I don't care how committed you are. It's tough because it's dark outside. The bed is comfortable. It's hard to get up and get moving. So I use different strategies for myself, and one of them happens to be putting earbuds in my phone and listening to things that are really motivating and inspiring and uplifting, because it changes the way I think. And one of the talks that I was listening to, it was the concept of the 3 U's. The 3 U's. And I was like, well, okay, that kind of got my attention, because as a clinician, I always tell people that there's different versions of themselves. And this talk was called the 3 U's. Cataline, what's up? So what happens here is I'm going to go ahead and give that talk to you. Now, the talk was really geared into like physical fitness. I'm going to bring it into recovery because that's why we're all here. But it can obviously be, it could be something that can be translated into all areas of life. So all of us have 3 U's: the past you, the present you, and the future you. And we're going to go through this live stream really breaking down and dissecting what all of those U's are, how they impact our life, present, and how, if unprocessed, can ultimately impact our future lives, right? So it is, Lynn's in the house too. What's up, Lynn? Good to see you. I saw a comment you left the other day for me. Yeah, you're welcome for what I'm doing. I'm happy to be doing this, and love you. Happy you're here, and hopefully you get something out of this. So, when somebody asks you, hey, how you doing? You usually respond from your present self. However, I'm going to contest today to say that all of us operate from the past you, the present you, and our future you. So the past you is something that I believe that all of us need to find a way to be grateful for, okay? To find some peace with. The past you has experienced, in some of your cases, significant losses. The past you has experienced trauma. You know, for all the ones that have left their homelands, you know, I know I got a bunch of you guys here from different countries. The past you got uprooted and left everything and anything that it knew. The past you has experienced grief. The past you has experienced psychological, emotional, physical traumas. The past you has experienced some good stuff too, by the way, accomplishments. The past you has experienced moving around, learning new things, starting something over again, getting married, getting divorced, getting married, having children, whatever your story is about your past you, the past you is something that we need to be grateful for, right? Because we can look at the past from one small lens and only see some of the negative stuff that we experienced, or you can zoom out of your past and say, hey, there's actually been a lot that I just choose not to look at sometimes. The past you also has these beautiful characteristics, and the two most beautiful ones from my perspective of all human beings that I've worked with, I've seen, I've talked to through the course of being a therapist and through the course of, you know, therapeutic conversations, is the human spirit has two of the most beautiful characteristics. Number one, something called resiliency. Number two, something called perseverance. Human beings collectively, their resilience in how they overcome obstacles and challenges in life blows me away. It blows me away. And when you look into your past and you see, how the hell did I get through that? How did I overcome what I experienced? The answer is simple: the beauty of human resiliency. Perseverance is the willingness to continue moving through, grinding through, getting by times in your life that you just can't think you can anymore. Like you just want to quit, but you keep persevering and moving through it. This is something when you look in your past self, if you objectively look at your past self, you have to stop and pause and think and say, gosh, I demonstrated resiliency. I demonstrated perseverance. Our past self is a very beautiful but dangerous place. Okay, so it's beautiful because of everything I just shared. It's dangerous because human beings tend to over-identify with the stories and events of their past, thinking and believing falsely that is who they are and what they are and all that they will ever be. And that is categorically false. There's no truth to that, okay? So the past, it is just a story. And when you realize that, it loses its power. Now, you know me, I'm very compassionate. I'm highly in tune with human suffering. I'm not saying that the events we go through in the past aren't real, okay? Please listen to me here. We go through real events. We go through things that are catastrophic. However, from that moment on, when we move forward, everything that we continue to take from that experience after the event happens starts to become a story that gets ingrained into our psyche. For example, when someone's a child and the parent does something and they say, my mom and dad don't love me, and they go on their entire life thinking mom and dad doesn't love them, when it was just out of one event or one situation that they created that story and ran with it. When all along, there's thousands of times that the parents demonstrated love, but the story becomes the reality, right? So when you realize that a lot of the events in our lives are stories that we created at a time in our life that we were younger, more vulnerable, impressionable, scared, didn't have the coping skills, then you start to say, okay, why am I giving so much power to a time and part of my life that I no longer live there? Because as cliche as it is, the past you is gone. The past you, those past experiences, they're gone. They don't exist. I was having a group with our program participants this morning, and a lot of them have a lot of guilt and shame for a lot of the things that they've done in their past. That's one of the common characteristics of addiction. Guilt and shame lives within the body, the mind of the individual who struggles with addiction. But here's the thing, and it's because it's related to stories from their past. Let's just say because they stole or they got arrested or whatever it is, they made their mom and dads cry. That story. However, when they meet me and I say, hey, my name is Param, nice to meet you. We're really happy to have you here. In that moment, all I see is the new version of that person. I don't see the person connected to those stories. Therefore, it tells me there is two people, the past self and the present self. The present self is where the power is. So going into the past self one more time is and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is how much power you give to the past in the stories of the past. However much power you give to it is how much power it will have. And I'll tell you in a second how that impacts your future. So now the present self, and by the way, this is for those, I know the ones that are watching right now are the ones that are kind of the faithful, as Cataline calls it right there. But if you're new here and you're just watching this, you can always write questions, talk about something that I'm talking about, in terms of, hey, something about your past that you realized or you're working on. And I pull it up on the screen and it's very interactive. So I want you to know that this isn't just me talking for the next, 40 minutes about whatever the heck I want to talk about. This is your time, your space for healing and transformation. So it gets into this thing called the present self now. Okay. The present self. How well do you know that person? When you, as an adult, far removed from the stories of your past, stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself, how well do you know that person? Are you looking at a stranger? Like when you look at your own eyes in a mirror, do you say, gosh, what happened? Where did it go? How did I get here? How fast is everything moving? If that happens, I'm telling you, it's because you didn't stop to connect with yourself in the present moment. As corny and cliche as it is, and I hate using those words, the present really is all that we have. If it's all that you have, how well do you know all that you have? How well do you know it? Because I'm telling you, if the present self is something that you're not even engaged with, the future will start to look like the past. So I found a couple of quotes here that I thought were pretty powerful, and I'm going to read them off so I don't mess it up. This one's by Henry David Thoreau, so someone that's much smarter than I am and way more articulate and can say things in a much more powerful way. He says, you must live in the present, launch yourself on every wave, find your eternity in each moment. So here's the part that really stood out to me. Fools stand on their islands of opportunities and look towards another land. There is no other land. There is no other life but this. It's kind of, if I summarize this into layman's terms, it says the grass is greener on the other side, right? People are standing in the present moment, which is treasure, but they're looking away somewhere else as if that moment is magically better than this moment. That moment is better than this moment. Says who? Because how many of you, my friends, have gotten to that moment and looked back at this moment and said, God damn, I didn't know how good I had it. I didn't know how beautiful it was. Why couldn't I just wake up in the present, take a look, and see how magical it was? But you know what people do? Yeah, it's not good enough. I'm not happy. I'm not content. If that happens, it's all better. I'm telling you, that's a dangerous trap. And Gandhi, which is someone that I love, Mr. Mahatma Gandhi. I wonder if Mahatma Gandhi ever thought that someone's going to be bringing him up on a talk like this on a live stream. Yeah, this is something, Jim. Words of wisdom. I always put your words of wisdom up, sir. All we really have is today. So that's the cliche part that we always say. But, when they say, the grass is greener on the other side, Jim just pointed out an observation that's important. Watch the grass, water the grass that you're standing on, and watch it grow. So water your own grass, it gets just as green, right? Martha, hey, by the way, Martha, good to see you in person the other day. Gandhi was a walking live stream. He really was. I mean, there's so much words of wisdoms and nuggets from that man that just like blows me away. But he says something that's really, really simple. And he just says, what you are doing today is setting yourself up for tomorrow. So it's saying that there's a correlation between today and tomorrow. Now, if you truly understand that, the preciousness, if you want to call that a word, the sensitivity, the beauty, the power, the potential of the present moment becomes anything and everything. Because if today is connected to tomorrow, then what we do today matters. What we do today matters. Because tomorrow will come the way all these tomorrows have come if we're lucky. And we get the opportunity to look at it and say, is this the life that I thought I was going to have? Or is it not? If it is, that means you did something in the present moment the day before that got you there. If it's not, you got to look back and see how you were living and what stories you were given power to, right? So the future right here, which we're getting into the future self right here, I believe that it's earned and not given, just like everything else in life. The future is earned, but it's not given. And that's kind of the challenge that we have with our program participants. And this could be with just humanity in general. Our program participants are just a small sample size of humanity in general. That people think that just by the passing of days and the passing of the calendars and the months and the years, that the future magically appears the way that they one point in life thought it was going to happen. And when that time comes, they look and they realize that, hey, this is not what I expected. This is not what I thought. What happened here? And then they get resentful, bitter, frustrated at people that they believe prevented them from getting there. So they don't take responsibility. They get angry, pissed off, resentful at life for not being fair, because how can those people around me achieve the life they want, but it didn't happen to me? It's just because I get the short stick every single time of life. And not knowing that the future is earned. Now, for example, I'm going to take this really, really to layman's terms and talk about recovery. There are family members. There's a bunch of you watching this right now, okay? Your past of your life had a lot of fear, a lot of powerlessness, a lot of frustration, anger, as it related to the mental health or the addiction of someone that you dearly love. You know what that past is like, okay? That past, let's just call it what it is. That past sucked. And you did not know what to do at first. You were honestly overwhelmed, and you couldn't really share with a lot of people because you had your own guilt and your own shame, taking responsibility for what was going on. You know, parents do that. And then the present moment happens, which is right now. Is what have you done? What are you doing? What will you do in this present moment that will allow you to forgive yourself, which we'll talk about in a second, from that past, to build the psychological, emotional muscles to get stronger and move forward in the present, to do the work you need to do to maybe help out a few other people in the present moment in order to have a future that does not look like your past anymore. And by the way, sometimes we always talk about boundaries in here, right? One of the most important things about boundaries when it comes to family recovery, it puts a boundary around the past. If you really catch what I'm saying right here, this is important. I know you don't want your past to continue repeating itself. Put a boundary on your past that does not allow that past to move forward into the future. Have the boundary stop it. If you don't put a boundary, the past comes into your future. I can't tell you how many family members say, I don't know what's happening. It's just, I feel like it's 5 years ago again, and 3 years ago again, 2 years ago again. And I say, well, tell me about your boundaries that you've placed based on those past experiences. Because if you don't, I'm telling you, if you sit and hope, yeah, there you go. You know what, Jim, thank you for your capital letters. Maintain your boundaries. Any fool in the world can set boundaries. Setting boundaries is easy. You can't do this anymore. But when the time comes and they do it again, what are you going to tell? And, me and Jim are on the same school of thought. I say sometimes, don't even set the boundary if you know you can't maintain it. Like, that's a cop-out. You're only setting boundaries because somebody like me or Jim's telling you to set boundaries, but when the time comes, you're not going to maintain it, right? You're not going to maintain it. So what's the point? I mean, what's the point of sending mixed messages to people who are already confused? What's the point of sending mixed messages to people who, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, right? I'm saying sometimes it's okay. Some boundaries need to be much more rigid, and some boundaries can be a little bit more flexible, right? Rigid and flexible. There's something there that's important to know, and that the level that you have there sometimes is based on like time going by, trust being built, and all that kind of stuff. So it's that's a really powerful thing right there. And when you're talking about the present moment, the future all of a sudden becomes really important that we're talking about here. So the future you is earned, not given. Like we said, it only gets created if you create it, or else it's Groundhog's Day. The future depends on what you do in the present moment. We talked about that. And I think the key to making healthy decisions is honoring your future self. So if right now, in this moment, you're struggling to make the right decision, I ask of you to pause and think about yourself a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. And ask yourself the following question. If I don't do this right now, how will my future self be affected? If I don't do this happens, like the most simple term I can explain this is for people that have a hard time understanding this, but they always understand when it's something, you add a numerical component to something. For example, let's say somebody has $2,000 rent due at the end of the month. Okay, $2,000 rent due at the end of the month. And they know that if they continue living the way they're living, they're going to be okay and they're going to be able to pay their rent. However, 2 weeks before the end of the month, they say, okay, I'm going to go buy this right now. There is a chance I'm not going to have the $2,000, but I'm going to go buy it impulsively anyways. And they go buy it. And 2 weeks from now, their future self is sitting there anxious, frustrated, scared, afraid, because they can't pay the rent. Now, all of a sudden, if they had a chance to go back 2 weeks ago and say, hey, by not buying this right now, my future self is going to sleep at peace knowing that it could pay the rent. Sometimes by honoring our future self, we make the right decision today. I do this all the time. Whenever prior to exercising, I always say, am I going to feel better a few hours from now or tomorrow morning by working out right now? I do it all the time. For example, when I'm up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to go work out, I always say this. I don't want to get out of bed. I mean, who am I lying to? It's not like I wake up at 4:30, let's go walk and go lift weights. It's the last thing you want to do. You want to sleep. But then I say this, if I go do it right now, at the end of the day, how am I going to feel? Am I going to feel accomplished? Am I going to feel that I succeeded? Am I going to feel like I honored my own word? If the answer is yes, I get myself up. I set myself up for success, just like Jim wrote right there. Let's see what Hossein. Oh, thank you, Martha. I'm glad this is helpful. Yesterday's gone. I enjoy the present and plan for tomorrow, but not worry about it. I don't worry about things I don't have any control over. I mean, that's a recovery 101. People, places, and things we have no control over, my friends. But we do have control over our present moment. Our actions we take, the places we go, the things we say, the places we don't go, the things we don't say. We have control over that. And here's the thing. None of us, including myself, can ever predict the future. So I can do everything the way I need to do it. And there's going to be this variable called lack of power in the lives of others that I can't control. And based on what they do, what they don't do, it's going to impact me. But control what you can control. It's the present moment, yourself in the present moment. And honor your future self. Treat that person the way you would treat a friend. Someone that needs the love. One of the tools, this was not on my talk, but I'm going to share something with you guys that I think is pretty interesting because it's something that helped me at a time in my life that is a version of me that none of you actually would know. So when I got clean and sober, I decided to go back to school. Okay. And when I went to this community college that was offering this 1.5 year counseling certificate, drug and alcohol counseling certificate, it was called human services kind of certificate. And I went there, and you got to realize at that point in my life, I was about 3 years removed from any type of formal schooling. So I went to college and stuff, but I dropped out and I got academic probation, and I kept taking classes and withdrawing them, or taking classes and just not withdrawing them, getting straight Fs. So when I went back to school, I didn't have the muscles and the motivations to be like a good student. And I had a addiction in the process. It's psychological, emotional addiction to drugs, to alcohol, to depression, to anxiety. I mean, I was messed up. So I go back to school, and when I was sitting in those classes, I was a little squirmy. I mean, I didn't want to be there. I wasn't comfortable with being in classes, and I truly mean that. And so I wrote something to myself, and this is God honest truth. I wrote something to myself. It said like, dear Param. And it was written from my future self. And it said something like this, and I don't remember exactly, but hey, I know you don't want to be in this class today. I know that going to school for you right now is tough. I know that it's frustrating to be 25 years old without a college degree. I know it's frustrating to be 25 years old without any type of income, to not have any bank account, to ask your mom and dad for $20 if you want to eat some food. I know life is hard for you right now. But don't you dare leave this class. Don't you dare walk out this classroom. Don't you dare give up, because a few years from now, you're going to look back at these days and you're going to say, that was where I built my foundation. You see, in the present moment, I didn't have the motivation to do some of that shit. But in the future, I knew there's a version of me, my future self, that needed me to stay in those classrooms, that needed me to do the work, to not give up. And guess what? I cut that paper and I put it behind my little folder. And there was at least 2 or 3 times that I walked out of class, I sat in my car and I read this thing. I walked right back into class. I apologized to the teacher and said, hey, I'm trying to break a habit. I'm trying to break a habit. And I stuck it in. And to this day, to this moment that I'm talking to you right now, I still write letters from my future self to myself. I just wrote one for this transformation that I'm in. The hardest physical feat of my life. I am literally dying, struggling. It is so hard to do what I'm doing right now with the exercise and the diet and all that kind of stuff that I'm doing. But I wrote a letter to myself that's dated 90 days out. And that letter is telling me to get through everything I'm getting through right now. And I read that thing and it gives me the motivation, the power to do it. So our future self is powerful. Our future self is powerful. Please write something from your future to your present. Please write something from your future to your present. So the next one that I have, and thank you, Vita. I don't know if that was a goosebump worthy, but yeah, goosebumps are the good things in life. One of my favorite things to do is there's this show called Undercover Boss. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but Undercover Boss is kind of when, there's like a big corporation or like a CEO or something like that, puts on a little disguise and goes in there and kind of infiltrates his own company or her own company and kind of meets with a couple different employees. And at the end of it, the boss kind of unveils themselves to the employee. And it's usually someone that's really struggling in life and they give them some nice opportunities. The reason I'm saying that is because that show gives me goosebumps. It really does. And sometimes when I'm really struggling in life or I'm just kind of overwhelmed, I'll watch Undercover Boss because I'm chasing that feeling of the goosebumps just to feel better. So I'm glad I was able to give you some goosebumps. That's the good stuff. It really is. So then there's a couple rules here, 3 quick rules, and I'll do this quickly in 15 minutes. So number 1 is something we talk about all the time in this group is you must, and this is like the Jim's capital M-U-S-T, you must forgive your past self, your past you. You have to, by all means necessary, forgive him or her, okay? I don't care if you're an individual that struggled with addictions and you did some dirty, bad, wrong things in your addiction to get high and get by. I don't care. I don't care if you're a family member that you knew out of your own guilt, you were enabling the heck out of your loved one and some bad stuff happened and you made some choices in your life that you look back now and say, hey, I made this thing even worse than it was. I don't care if you said things that you didn't mean. I don't care if you avoided people you were supposed to kind of connect with. Whatever you've done in your life, if you want to be able to live fully and freely, you must forgive your past. Okay? I have some issues with my past self. I'll be honest. I have some issues with my past self. However, I know that he was young and I forgive him. I do. I know that he was young and I forgive him. And check this out. I'm not just talking about the time I was a kid. Let's say I made some mistakes a year ago. Today I look back and I say, you know what? I was young and I forgive him. I don't care how old you are in life. If you made some mistakes yesterday, today you are older than that person. And sometimes we have to forgive our youth. Sometimes you got to forgive our youth, because check this out. In life, we all do the best we can with what we know at that time. That's just what that's how human beings make decisions. You do the best you can with the knowledge and information you have at that time. That's life. Sometimes that decision's a good one, sometimes it's a bad one, and sometimes it's something in between. However, when you start to know better, and I say this to you guys all the time, when you start to know better in life, you got to do better. And the only way you can do better is if you forgive the times you didn't know any better. Go back and listen to what I said again right there. The only time you can do better is when you go back and forgive yourself for the times you didn't know better. Because once you do better, life's going to get better for you and for others. So forgiveness, man, so many of your family members forgive the heck out of your loved ones, right? You're so unselfish to forgive other people. It's like, I forgive my kid, I forgive my spouse, I forgive blah, 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 blah. But have you really forgiven yourself? Have you ever forgiven yourself? Yeah, and this is 100%, by the way, Martha. This is something that was actually in my talk. It's make sure you give some love to your past self too, like I was talking about. The perseverance, the resilience, the accomplishments. Like just being a human is an accomplishment, and going through, make sure you love on that person, because by the way, you can't love something you haven't forgiven. I don't believe that holding on, like not forgiving something, there's no love in that. So an act of love is an act of forgiveness. And these are kind of two quotes that I found I thought were pretty interesting. It says, we must learn to regard people less in the light of what they do or omit to do, and more in the light of what they suffer. Okay? Because remember, everyone's going through a different world. And this sounds like a kind of a hippie trip psychedelic talk. If there's 8 billion people in this world, I want you to consider that there's 8 billion different worlds. Each person is living in a world of their own. I know that these worlds come and intertwine and kind of get together at times, but everyone's going through their own world with their own suffering, right? So when we look at people of like what they do or don't do, and it frustrates us and pisses us off and all that kind of stuff, sometimes just look and see what they might be suffering from. There was a nice video that I used to show, and maybe I'll show it one week, but it's from the Cleveland Clinic, which is a hospital over there in Cleveland, well known. They do a lot of good research with nutrition, actually. But it's like a bunch of people that are going through life in a hospital, and no one's saying anything. And on top of their heads, it has these little bubbles of what they're going through. Like this person just found out that someone in their life has cancer. This person just found out that the billing is going to be so expensive for their finances. This person just found out that the cancer they had is fully cured. This person just found out that their wife just had a baby. This person just found out that their kid just fell down and broke his wrist. This person just found out they're getting laid off from work. All the nurses are getting laid off. This person just found out that the funding they were going to get just didn't get received. And they're going through life in this hospital. No one's talking to each other, but everyone's going through these different experiences simultaneously. Everyone's living their own world. And when you really realize that, and realize that, hey, we must learn to regard people less in the light of what they do or don't do, and more in the light of what they suffer, there's some freedom to that. And this one's really big for all my knowledge people. I know there's a few of you. It says the highest form of knowledge is empathy. The highest form of knowledge is empathy. You know, they say it's a PhD, but I don't think they give out PhDs for empathy. Maybe they should. I thought that's pretty cool. So let's see what Eileen said here. Let me put it up. Participation. Sometimes, and by the way, my eye's a little better. As you can tell, I can read much better. Sometimes we know better and still make bad decisions. It seems that this an important time to forgive ourselves because we can be extra hard on ourselves at that time. Just move forward. Fail forward, Eileen. You know, if you fail forward, if you fall down and you get back up, you make some progress in that fall. So failing forward is something that's really important. And by the way, sometimes we know better and we don't do better. But the few days after that, we look back and again, that's our younger self. That's our younger self. And what do we talk about the younger self today? Got to forgive that person. And the next one that I got here is to commit to physical, psychological, emotional self-improvement. This is all present self. All present self. So commit, we've talked about what commitment means. It means the motivation and willingness to continue doing something after the initial excitement's gone away. So I was taught, and this is what I do, every morning when I wake up, I do three things. One for my mind, one for my body, one for my spirit or my soul. Every single morning, I touch all three of those areas. Because I believe that if all three of those areas are fed properly and taken care of properly, it's kind of like a garden that you tend to, it tends to bloom and manifest in the most beautiful way. But a lot of people wake up and they don't do something for their body. They don't do something for their mind. They sure as heck don't do something for their spirit. And they wonder why they go through life with no energy, with no vitality, with no humor. I mean, there's something I saw. I don't know exactly the statistics here, so I'm going to paraphrase it. It said that a child under the age of 2 laughs like 100 times a day. Like belly laughs 100 times a day. Now, I haven't been around a baby that age, so some of you who have, you remember like the kid just laughs for no reason and giggles. They say that an adult above the age of 40 laughs maybe 2 times a day. Maybe. The child is 100 times a day a kid laughs. The adult, 2 times a day maybe. And I believe that if you feed your soul and spirit and body, then good stuff can happen right there. Let's see. Cataline, we got to help you get a breakthrough on this one. I find that it's harder to forgive myself now in recovery than it is to forgive my addicted past. I need to work on that. Okay, I'm glad you put that last part in there. I need to work on that because you do. And again, so there's a gap here, right? So that gap is called the compassion gap. So there's a part of you that you want to be like, and then you fall short of it in your recovery. There's a gap that exists there. And that gap is called the compassion gap. It must be filled with compassion. Because remember this, if compassion doesn't extend to yourself, it is incomplete. That's what you're experiencing right now. Incomplete compassion towards yourself. You're never going to be perfect. You're always going to fall short. And when you do, can you say to yourself, it's okay. I did the best I could. Because at the end of the day, Cataline, if you do the best you could, that's the best you could. And it's really, really hard to hold someone against doing the best they could. I mean, imagine a child, right? That does the best they could. You know they did the best you could. They did. And then you say, hey, not good enough. I know you pretty well. I don't think you'd say that to the kid. And how you dare say that to yourself is a mystery. But when you say I need to work on that, I have a feeling that you're going to work on that and you're going to transcend through that thought process. And by the way, I'm very hard on myself, just so you know that. But somewhere I learned a quote that helped me out so much. It said that perfect is the enemy of good enough. Sometimes good enough is good enough. And I can't tell you how much that helped me. I mean, it's just because I always thought it needs to be perfect. I got to be perfect. But sometimes good enough is good enough. So I want you to know that sometimes when you take some actions in your recovery, it doesn't have to be perfect as long as it's good enough. You know, as long as it's good enough. And the other thing too is, you know how you say you could forgive your past before, but now you can't, you know, that kind of stuff. Just know that, you know, a year from now, this moment right now that you can't forgive is also going to be your past. So at that time, are you able to forgive your past? If the answer is yes, you're making good progress. And the last one here is a good kind of a bullet point takeaway. It says to have no more 0 days. So what is a 0 day? So I want you to think of like deposits and withdrawals, pluses and minuses. If you go through life having no positives or no deposits into your mind, body, spirit, it's like a 0 day. So not doing a walk, not doing a phone call, not doing some step work, not reaching out, not doing an act of service, helping out another human being, not writing a sentence. If you do all those zeros, it's a wasted day. But if you add some positives, just one positive thing, one positive thing, one positive thing, and when there is negatives, it's okay. It can negate one of those positives. At the end of the day, you want your balance to reflect positive. No more 0 days. You know what 0 days were? 0 days were before you got exposed to recovery for yourself, is when you were living then and there, traumatized by fear, crippled by fear, unable to take action, piling on 0 day after 0 day after 0 day, looking around wondering why your life feels so empty, why your life account feels so broke and empty. Well, today you know better, so do better. Start depositing something into yourself every single day. And even when life takes little withdrawals from you, your balance is healthy because you want to look back and you don't want to be in the red. You want to be in the black. I'm using so many different analogies. Even my accounting analogies just came out. Not even I'm the worst accountant in the world. No more red, just black days, positive, just positive days. So today was cool. This was brand new. I hope you got something out of it. We talked about the 3 U's in life and recovery: the past you, the present you, and the future you. I talked about the importance of forgiving yourself for the past and the present. And we talked about, the commitment to physical, psychological, emotional self-improvement. Do something every day for your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul. And no more 0 days. No more 0 days. And I'm glad that I was positive for, let's say, great deposit into the day. I'm glad I'm not a withdrawal. Can you imagine that? Parham, I feel like your talks are withdrawing from my vitality. Jim, yep, good enough. That was good enough. It didn't have to be perfect today. Kathleen, you're welcome. Hossein, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Feel free to share this with anyone that you think will benefit from it. Just put the Facebook link and hit share and let it go and see what happens to it. I love and appreciate you. I'll be back next week for the last group in August, and we'll keep going there through September. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I love and appreciate you, and talk soon. Take care, everyone.